Hello. Today we're going to start with the pre-flight of the airplane. This is an FAA requirement that we perform before each flight. The manufacturers in their Pilot Operating Handbook, or POH, puts out a checklist in there. It's pretty much a general checklist because it'll include items that may not be installed in your airplane. The FAA allows you to create your own checklist specific to your airplane and items installed in that airplane. What's important here is that this pre-flight inspection covers the whole airplane. To make for standardization, it is advisable to always start in the same place. I've been flying for 45 years, and I always start at the nose of the airplane, and I go around counterclockwise and always arrive back. I know I've completed my checklist, and will go back over my checklist to make sure I did not miss any items at the end. So it's a flow followed up by the checklist. We're going to start with the items inside the cockpit first. The pre-flight starts in the cabin. The first item is the documents. The acronym for the 4 items we're looking for is AERO: Airworthiness Certificate, Registration, Pilot's Operating Handbook, and a weight and balance manual for this airplane, AERO. The next item is to remove the control lock. Carefully, we remove this so we can do our external pre-flight. Next thing we do, turn on the master switch. We check that the magnetos are in the off position and the key is out. Come up here, we see how much fuel's on board. We're going to compare that to what we actually see in the tanks. Next, we come across, turn on all the lights, come over, bring our flaps down. Quickly go around the airplane is to not let the battery drain. Okay, now we do a quick walk around. Pedal heat was one of those items we turned on. It's warm to the touch. Left wingtip, we have the red nav light and the strobe light. Come to the tail, we have the red anti-collision light and the white position light on the rudder. Continuing around to the right, we have the strobe light and the green position light. And coming back to the front, the largest draw on the airplane is the landing light. So we check its operation. That completes the light check, and we'll turn off all the lights in the master switch. My pre-flight always starts at the nose of the airplane. I start with the nose gear. So on this airplane, we're going to check the fairings. I can pop the door, look at the brakes and the wheel, make sure that it's properly inflated, looking to make sure there's not a lot of oil on the air oilio strut, that it's not leaking, and that there is room for compression so that it does work as a shock absorber as it's supposed to. On the other side, we have the shimmy dampener, and so we're just checking for tightness. Shouldn't be loose. The other thing to check here is the cowling and the fasteners. Everything be tight. There should be no missing screws. So we're going to come around, we're going to check them. A lot of them are along a paint line, and you'll see a white and a blue, so you know which way the direction. Sometimes they'll spin out, but they don't pop off. Checking the top, we come around, everything looks secure. This is an external power door. Make sure that it's secured and locked. Static port, that it's clear. The next thing I check is the wing strut. The lower end, I'm going to check this little fairing, make sure that all the screws are in, make sure that it's not cracked and it's secure. This is a step for getting up on the wing to check the fuel. Here's the other step that you can do. Come up here, again, I look at the pitot tube, everything's good. I look inside, I don't see anything. I come out here, we have our stall warning that we talked about. I can check that when I'm on a ladder. And then the upper wing fairing. So we're going to check it. All the bolts are in and clear. And I check my fuel tank vent line while I'm here. Next thing I'm going to do is get a ladder so I can check the fuel quantity. Here we're going to check the left main tank. On every airplane, there's a placard that says what fuel is used in this airplane and the quantity that it holds. In this case, 100 low lead, 100 minimum grade aviation gasoline, capacity 27 US gallons. 100 low lead is a light blue tint to it. We take the fuel cap off, it has a chain that secures it. We put this dipstick in, put the finger over the top to create suction, lift it out, and we have about 22 gallons of fuel. Try it one more time just to make sure you got it correct, and it comes out to about 22 gallons. Put the cap back on, make sure that it seats, turn it clockwise, make sure that it's with the airflow facing forward and back. Continuing down the wing, we have the tie-down loop, so we check for security here, and we just go down the wing. We're looking for the general condition. We're looking for any major dents, scratches. Come to the wingtip here. This is a fiberglass tip that is added on. It has screws along here on the bottom and the top that hold it in place. General security, looking at the lights, everything is secure. Now we'll come around the trailing edge of the wing and we'll check the ailerons. Start here on the outside and work our way towards the inside. We have the two static wicks, discharge wicks. We'll check them for security. We go along looking at the trailing edge, make sure that there's no cracks. Now we come around to the inside underneath and we're going to look at the aileron connections. We have 3 piano hinges that hold these in place to the wing. We're checking for the general condition, for any rust or anything that maybe exist. The middle one here also has the control rod for the aileron, so we're checking for its security. Okay, here we're checking the third hinge. It's also very clean. All 3 of these hinges are in good shape. Come around on the outside here and check the top. Again, general condition, everything looks good. The next thing I do is check the operation of the ailerons with the rest of the airplane controls. I come over, I open the door so that I can see my controls. Come out here, stand at a position where I can see them. I can see the other aileron. When I have it neutral, we can see that the steering column is in the neutral position. When I go up, this forces that wing down. This is a left turn. The controls are fully left. I look out to the other aileron. It's all the way down, which lifts that wing. Do the reverse. This one comes down. The control wheel went to the right, and the airplane would be turning to the right. Now we're going to check the flaps and their operation. Close the door here to give us a little more room. We have 2 runners that these flaps run on, so we're going to check for the bushings in the top and the bottom. This is normal play and is allowed. In the middle here we have the push rod that actually moves them up and down. There's a roller bearing there, we check that, and the inboard one. The next item we're going to check while we're here is the fuel drain. This is a sump drain. It's the lowest point in the airplane for the fuel tank. We take this sample. We see blue in color, so we have the 100 octane low lead, and now we're checking for contaminants. That's clear. And the last thing we check for is water in the fuel. Fuel weighs 6 pounds a gallon, water weighs 8 pounds a gallon. So therefore, any water that would be in this sample would show up as a bubble on the bottom of the container. Now for environmental reasons, we're going to take this fuel, pour it into a container that we'll take back to the maintenance department for proper disposal. Go ahead. We now come around to the back of the flap. Now we're looking at the rivets that are here that hold the attachment and the counterweights in here. We're looking at the push rod assembly and connections, all the bolts come across, checking the trailing edge, make sure it doesn't have any damage. At this point, we can also step back and look at the top of the wing and look at the general condition. While we're here, we'll look at the main landing gear. So we'll look at the fairings, the wheel pants, and the attachment on both sides from the tubular strut. So we can see here all the bolts are in. Same thing on this side. The security step is secure. Come around the outside. Again, looking at everything, checking it out. Proper tire inflation is very important. Again, there's a door here for filling it and checking that tire pressure. Everything looks good. We'll continue on with the empennage. Okay, now we're going to look at the empennage and work our way to the tail group. Here we can see a good view of the antennas, security of the door, windows, gaskets, everything looks good. We come back, we can check with the dorsal fin, looking for rivets. Everything should be nice and flush. Access doors are closed, all the screws are in place. Checking the leading edge here to see if there's any dents that would affect the airworthiness. We come around the end and we look for the same thing here. Make sure that they're secure and intact. Okay, now we're going to check the condition of the elevator, the attachments. We have 3 attachment points on this airplane. One here, this one looks good. Freedom of movement is very important. Here's the main one. I can check the condition of the 2 push rods that go to the control wheel. And while I'm here, I can look at the bottom of it for any damage. Everything looks good here. We'll go to the right side. Next, we're going to check the rudder. So we can look at the top of the vertical stabilizer. The antennas look secure. No missing screws, rivets, general condition. This rudder has 3 hinge points, 1, 2, and 3. Checking freedom of movement. Everything feels good. We can also look at the cables for tension. Next is the right elevator, just like the left elevator. Damage looks clean. The other thing on this is we have the movable trim tab. So as the elevator goes up, the trim tab will go down. As the elevator goes down, the trim tab moves up to give it that pressure. The control rod's right here. That looks secure. Attach point, everything feels nice and free. Come around the end and we check for the condition. Okay, we come around to the front of the horizontal stabilizer. General condition, nicks, scratches. Down the side of the empennage, antenna, nice and tight. Windows, gaskets. Flap, same as the other side. General condition, rivets. Push rod. Everything looks good there. Top of the aileron, trailing edge condition. Inboard hinge, middle one. Push rod, third one. Static wicks, nice and tight. End cap, all the screws are in. General condition, security, lights. This all looks good. We'll come into the inboard side of the flap. Checking the underneath side of the flaps. Hinges look good. Push rod secure. Inboard one looks good. Doors, windows, fairings on the main gear. Everything looks good. All the bolts nice and tight. Everything from the front looks good. Take a look at the tire pressure. All looks good. Next, I'll check the fuel. Next, we'll check the right tank. Take our fuel sample. Make sure there's no dripping. Looking for sediment. Look into the sun. See if there's any water in this one. Nice and clear. And put it into our container. We'll continue with the leading edge. Now we'll check the leading edge for general condition. And we'll come to the wing strut here. Upper attachment looks good. The fairing's good. Tie down is good and secure. Foot peg is good, secure. And that all looks good. Next, we'll check the fuel. Now for the right tank quantity, so we come up, we have our required placard. Remove the fuel cap, chain is secure. Then we'll dip this, lean our finger over it. So we have almost 23 gallons on this side. Yep. Keep all fuel from draining on it. Put back in the cap, turn it, making sure that everything's secure. One last check, the top of the wing, make sure all of our screws and inspection plates are all good. Everything's perfect on this airplane. Okay, now we're going to look at the right side. So the cowling here is secure. We're looking for all the fasteners. Coming down here, they're all looking good. You can see the antennas. Exhaust is nice and tight. Now we have an access door for the fuel strainer and the oil level dipstick. We're going to check the fuel strainer and for contamination and water. Because it's on the bottom of this cowling, it actually takes 2 people. So if you have another pilot or a friend, it becomes very helpful. Now let's check the oil. It's reading about 4.5 quarts. The minimum for this engine is 4, the maximum is 6. So we're going to add a quart while we're here. Funnel, put it in nice and secure. Quart of aviation oil. We try not to drip anything inside the cowling here. Looks good. Give it a second for my spout. Everything nice and clean. Clean my dipstick. Put it back in. Screw it all the way in so we get the proper depth. Screw it again. And I'm reading about 5.5. That'll be perfect for a long distance flight. In securing the cap, you don't over tighten it. As the engine gets warm, it'll self tighten. So just about 15 to 20 foot-pounds, no more. That's secure. We close the cap and we're done there. Now we come around to the nose, last point of inspection. Check the air intakes. Make sure there's no foreign objects such as a bird nest. Check here for the security of the alternator belt, tension on it. Prop spinner, all of the bolts nice and secure. Checking the light, checking the air filter. The housing's all secure. The last major item is the leading edge of the prop. It should be nice and smooth and no nicks. If you do pick up a rock and you get a nick, please tell maintenance so that they can file that out and make it nice and smooth again. We checked both sides look good. This now completes the pre-flight inspection for this Cessna 172. Many of the airplanes you fly will be very similar to this. Please check for your specific make and model with your pilot's operating handbook. We thank you for your attention and safe flights.